There are days when the question is not what to cook, but how to solve the meal in a way that feels easy, comforting, and still full of flavor. That's exactly where this Brazilian classic comes in. In a simple pan, with just a few ingredients and no fuss, linguiça acebolada transforms an ordinary moment into something warm, inviting, and delicious. It's the kind of recipe that has a place at the bar table, at a weekend lunch, or even on a quiet evening when you want something practical that still tastes like home. What makes this dish so special is that it doesn't try to impress with complexity. It wins you over with aroma, color, and timing. The sausage sizzles as it begins to brown, the onions soften and slowly take on that golden tone, and the whole kitchen starts to feel different. More alive. More Brazilian. There's something almost nostalgic about it, because this is the kind of food many people know from family gatherings, neighborhood bars, and those easy conversations that happen around a hot plate of food. You don't need a long list of ingredients to create that feeling. You just need to respect each step and let the flavors do their work. And here's the best part, this recipe is simple enough for any day, but satisfying enough to serve when you want to make people happy without spending too much time in the kitchen. It's affordable, hearty, and rich in protein, which makes it a practical choice too. Still, the secret is in the details. Browning the sausage well is what gives it that irresistible texture and deep flavor. Letting the onions caramelize properly is what turns the dish from good to memorable. If you rush that part, you lose a little of the magic. So if you enjoy Brazilian food, or if you're just curious about recipes that carry culture in every bite, stay with me. This is one of those dishes that proves simple can be extraordinary, and in a moment you'll see exactly how to bring that golden, flavorful pan to life. The first thing I do is get the pan hot, because this is one of those recipes that starts with confidence. There's something comforting about hearing the oil warm up and knowing that, in just a few minutes, a simple ingredient will turn into something that feels like a proper meal. I add the calabrese sausage and let it begin to brown without rushing it. That golden color is not just for looks, it's where the flavor starts to deepen, where the outside gets a little crisp and the inside stays juicy. While the sausage cooks, I slice the onions into generous strips. Not too thin, because I want them to soften slowly and hold their shape as they cook. This is the part where the kitchen starts to smell like home. The sausage releases its seasoning into the pan, and the onions begin to catch that flavor, becoming sweet, glossy, and full of character. If you've ever stood by the stove waiting for a simple dish to become irresistible, you know exactly what I mean. It's not complicated, but it does ask for a little patience. And that patience makes all the difference. One of the biggest mistakes with linguiça acebolada is moving too fast, serving it before the sausage is properly browned or before the onions have had time to caramelize. But when you let each step happen naturally, the result is much better. The sausage becomes more flavorful, the onions turn soft and rich, and everything in the pan starts to come together in a way that feels both rustic and special. I like to think of this as the kind of recipe that saves the day. Maybe guests showed up unexpectedly, maybe it's a weekend lunch, or maybe you just want something savory without spending a lot of time or money. In moments like that, a dish like this feels like the perfect answer. It's practical, satisfying, and full of the kind of Brazilian flavor that never goes unnoticed. And if this kind of simple, honest cooking speaks to you, take a moment to leave a like, because recipes like this deserve to be remembered. Tell me too, what Brazilian flavor are you most curious to try next? And if you enjoy discovering these classic dishes with me, make sure to subscribe, because there's still more to come, and the best part is just ahead. As the sausage hits the pan, you can already hear that first soft sizzle, the kind of sound that makes a simple kitchen feel alive. There's something comforting about this moment, because it reminds us that a good recipe doesn't need to be complicated to feel special. With just a little olive oil and the right heat, the calabrese sausage starts to brown on the outside, releasing that deep, savory aroma that instantly changes the mood in the room. It's the kind of smell that brings people closer, making someone peek into the kitchen and ask, "Is it ready yet?" And that's exactly why linguiça acebolada is so beloved in Brazilian food culture. It's practical, affordable, and full of flavor without asking for much in return. But the secret is in the patience. If you rush the sausage, you miss that beautiful golden color that gives the dish its character. Browning it well is not just a detail, it's the foundation of the whole recipe. It's what makes each bite satisfying, with a texture that contrasts perfectly with the softness of the onion. Then come the onions, sliced and added at just the right time, slowly taking on the flavor left behind in the pan. This is where the magic really begins. They soften, turn translucent, and then gradually caramelize, becoming sweet and rich in a way that balances the boldness of the sausage. You don't need to force it. You just let the heat do its work while the kitchen fills with that unmistakable aroma of home-cooked food. It's a small act, but it carries a lot of tradition. Maybe that's why this dish appears so often at bars, family lunches, and weekend gatherings. It feels familiar, warm, and easy to share. You can serve it as an appetizer, alongside rice, or even as part of a more relaxed spread when friends stop by. And honestly, who doesn't appreciate a recipe that delivers so much with so little effort? If you're enjoying this kind of simple Brazilian cooking, leave a like to support the video. And I have to ask, what Brazilian flavor are you most curious to try next? If this recipe is making you hungry for more, make sure you're subscribed, because the next step brings everything together beautifully. Quando a linguiça comica a durar de verdade, a cozinha muda de clima. O Cairo sob devagar, toma conta do ar e já faz qualquer aparecer por perto perguntando o que está sendo preparado. Nesse momento que vale a pena ter paciência, porque é justamente o bom dorado de carne que vai dar base para todo o sabor do prato. Se a linguiça fica pálida, ela é cozinha, mas não entrega aquela força gostosa que faz a receita parecer comida de bar, de encontro simples, de mesa que sem complicado. Eu gosto de ver esse processo acontecer com calma. A frigideira trabalhando, o azeite envolvendo tudo, e a linguiça soltando aos poucos sua própria gordura, formando aquele fundo mais intenso no fundo de panela. Ai entrem as cebolas, feixes generosas, e o sal muda na hora. Elas chegam meio firmes, mas logo com a mercher, a pegar-se-or, e a misturar sua de cura natural com o sabor mais marcante de linguiça. Esse contraste que faz a receita ganhar personalidade. Nem todo mundo percebe de primeira, mas a cebola bem caramelizada é o que transforma prato simples em algo realmente memorável. Temquem quaira acelerar essa etapa, mexer demais, aumentar o fogo e achar que vai chegar mais rápido no resultado. Mas, nesse tipo de preparo, o segredo é exatamente o contrário, deixar o tempo fazer seu trabalho. Quando a cebola cozinha no ponto certo, ela perde agressividade, fica mexa, brilhante, quase envolvente, e abraca a linguiça de jeito que dá vontade de provar direito de panela. Uma comida que conversa com a memória afetiva, porque lembra reunião de fim de tarde, conversa na varanda, mesa sem cerimônia e aquela sensação boa de que o simples, quando é bem feito, basta. E é interessante como uma receita tal prática consegue agradar tanta gente. Com poucos ingredientes, você entrega algo forte, suculento e caio de presença, sem precisar de nenhum exagero. Para quem gosta de cozinhar no dia a dia, isso é uma vantagem enorme, rapidez, economia e sabor no mesmo prato. E quando a combinação comica a ficar pronta, já dá para imaginar acompanhando pão, uma farofa ou oito sendo servida sozinha, como petisco mesmo, do jeito que muita gente ama. Se você está gostando dessa ideia de receitas brasileiras fáceis e cheias de sabor, já deixa seu like, porque isso ajuda demais. E me conta, qual sabor brasileiro você mais quer experimentar ou aprender a fazer em casa? Se quiser acompanhar mais receitas como essa, se inscreve, porque ainda vemos melhor de linguiça acebolada. And this is where the recipe really starts to feel alive, because once the sausage hits the pan, you can already hear that promise of flavor. The pieces begin to brown slowly, and that first sizzle is almost enough to make you smile on its own. There's no need to rush here. Let the Calabrese sausage do its work, releasing its own seasoning and turning golden on the outside while staying juicy inside. That color is not just beautiful, it is what gives linguiça acebolada its character. Then come the onions, sliced and ready to soak up everything left behind in the pan. At first they look simple, almost humble, but as they warm in the olive oil and sausage fat, they begin to soften, shine, and take on that sweet, deep flavor that only patience can create. This is the kind of moment that reminds you how Brazilian cooking often turns the most accessible ingredients into something comforting and memorable. You don't need a long list of items or complicated techniques. You need attention, a little patience, and the confidence to let each step develop properly. If you've ever watched someone make this dish at home, you know how quickly it becomes a conversation in the kitchen. Someone says it smells amazing. Someone else asks if it's ready yet. And then there's always that one person who sneaks a taste before serving. It's that kind of recipe, informal, welcoming, and impossible to ignore. It works just as well for a casual lunch as it does for a table of friends gathered around drinks and laughter. And that's what makes it so easy to love. Linguica acebolata is practical, but it doesn't feel ordinary. It has the strength of a hearty appetizer, the warmth of a homemade meal, and the kind of flavor that brings people closer without asking for much in return. The onions become richer, the sausage becomes more irresistible, and together they create something that feels bigger than the sum of its parts. If you're enjoying this simple Brazilian classic, leave a like so more people can discover it too. And I'd love to know, what Brazilian flavor are you most curious to try next? If you want more recipes like this, subscribe and stay close, because the next step is where everything comes together beautifully. And when the onions have reached that soft, golden point and the sausage is perfectly browned, the kitchen seems to settle into a kind of quiet satisfaction. The aroma is unmistakable, warm, savory, a little sweet from the onions, and rich from the sausage itself. It's the kind of scent that makes people look up from what they're doing and ask, "Is it ready yet?" That's the beauty of Linguica acebolata. It doesn't need fancy technique or a long ingredient list to feel special. It just needs attention, patience, and the right moment to bring everything together. What I love most about this recipe is how it turns something simple into something memorable. It can be served as a quick snack, a starter for guests, or even as part of a bigger meal. And no matter the occasion, it always brings that comforting Brazilian feeling of something honest, practical, and full of flavor. The browned edges of the sausage, the soft sweetness of the onions, and the shine of the olive oil create a combination that is hard to resist. It's the kind of dish that reminds us that good food doesn't have to be complicated to be truly satisfying. So if today's recipe gave you a new idea for your next meal, leave a like and help more people discover this simple classic from Brazilian cuisine. And I really want to know, what Brazilian flavor are you most curious to try next? There are so many delicious possibilities, from street food favorites to homemade dishes full of tradition and memory. Each one has its own story, and each one brings a different kind of comfort to the table. If you enjoy recipes like this, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll keep bringing you easy, flavorful dishes from Brazil, always with clear steps and that inviting taste of home. Because sometimes the best recipes are the ones that feel familiar the first time you make them.